so that we can also share it on LinkedIn later on and on YouTube, of course. So welcome everyone on this special online conversation hosted by Move into the Future and the Wize Move Society, the online community for the over 50 generation. This Wize generation is growing rapidly. We live longer, are longer, healthy and active, and are better educated than ever. So there are more reasons why this generation should play an active role in the economy and in society a lot longer than they expected when they started their career. So we believe that the over 50 generation has a significant role to play in the creation of the future. We just need to tap into our knowledge, experience and wisdom. And with these Tuesday live conversations, we aim to give you a glimpse of what is happening online on the Wize Move Society, to share a bit about both the challenges and the opportunities that the 50+ generation is facing, as well as how the members of the Wize Move Society work together to create the solutions and play an active role in society and the economy. So we're very clear that we're not on our way out, but that we're part of the future. So those who join us on Zoom, we love you to contribute in the conversation. And if you have joined us on Facebook, please share your comments and questions, your feedback in the comments below. So my name is Ingun. I'm the founder of Move into the Future and the creator of the Wize Move Society. And I'm here today with Tatiana, my co-host, and our guest, Saskia Harkema. Saskia, well, actually was there when we started Move into the Future, and she's one of the teachers on our community, on the Wize Move Society. She's the CEO of Faces of Change, a scientist, a humanitarian, global goodwill ambassador, global ambassador, female wave of change, and a lot more. So together we're going to dive into the topic. It's time to reinvent yourself. And before we do that, I would like to give my co-host, Dr. Tatiana, the floor so she can share a bit more about her background, and she will pass on the stage to Saskia. So Tatiana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ingun. Hello everyone. I always say good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending where you are and what time you're joining us. So I'm a psychologist by training, but I'm also an academic. So I do research in the area of aging at work more specifically, and how these transitions that happen in midlife have an impact in our working life and our own healthy aging process. So I've always been very curious to hear from Saskia. So I'm really delighted you're joining us, because reinventing ourselves is something that we cannot thrive without. It's part of survival, it's part of adaptation, it's part of what it takes to age well in the world. So I won't say any more, because I want to give the floor to Saskia and invite her to tell us a bit about time to reinvent yourself. Please, welcome, Saskia.
Yes, thank you, Tatiana, and also Ingun, for inviting me to this wonderful platform. And I would like to start by briefly telling a little bit about myself. And I am a mother of 2 children. It's, of course, an very important role in my life. I'm an academic. I have a background in sociology and business administration, and I hold a PhD in innovation sciences. And I have an important part of my work is my academic work. So I've worked for several universities, across the globe, I would say, and my expertise lies in the field of innovation, entrepreneurship, and change management. And next to that, I'm also a humanitarian. So I am a very strong campaigner and advocator also for human rights, and supporting especially also refugees and marginalized groups and disenfranchised people. And why is, let's say, that this topic of what is the focus also of the Wize Move Society, to, I would say, reframe the way that we approach age and reframe the way that we approach the older generation. I think that's very important because in a sense, this has also to do with my own perspective on my own life and on life in general. And I see life not in terms of age, I see life as a journey, and a journey with a beginning and an end. But I don't see that journey in terms of numbers, like first year, second year. It's just a journey. And I don't know where that journey is going to take me. The only thing that is certain about that journey is that I was born and that I will die. But as in a journey, every time you come across all kinds of unexpected turns and twists. And this is what life for me is. So in a sense, attaching a number to our life, I find it quite meaningless. This is, I think, I don't know who invented that. Of course, also time is a concept which was invented, because in the past, you didn't measure time in terms of hours. You measured time in terms of the sun coming up and the sun going down, and also the position of the sun. So it was someone, I don't know who gave it numbers and minutes and seconds. But this is not how old ancient civilization measured time. So it's all a matter of also perspective. And this is why I also say that it's so important to reframe this perspective on age, and especially the older age, because in a sense, it not only is a matter of reframing that, but using age as a measure to, you could say, describe someone's life, also has to do with labels that we get. So you have the label of that you're young, and you have the label that you're middle-aged, and you have the label that you're beyond middle-aged. It's all labels, but it doesn't say anything about who we are. Because in essence, you could say that what is the defining element in that journey through life is the experiences we have. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with some kind of label which qualifies, because this is what it does. When we label someone as old, it's also qualification. You're old. Well, if we say, but you're very experienced, this kind of is just saying what it is. We have a lot of experience. We have a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of, you could say, we've traveled a long way, but that's it. And so this reframing for me is really important. I think that's one of the things that also defines me in my work, is that I'm always challenging the dominant way of thinking about things, because we are in a phase of transition. And for me, and this is where also my expertise to think about innovation and those things is, it's very important if you want to innovate, if you want to create new things, is that you have to disrupt the status quo. And disrupt sounds a bit negative, but disrupting the status quo is nothing else than challenging what we think what is normal. It's just questioning, challenging, asking ourselves, is it still valid? And this is how you can create more innovation. So it's not something negative. But when it comes to age, I think we haven't disrupted anything. On the contrary, we still have this idea that life is kind of like a cycle in which you are somehow offering something to the society, and that the younger you are, then the more value it has also. And when you get older, it has less value. I would say it's contradictory, because when you get older, you have much more value because you have much more experience. So it's interesting to think about those things. And this is what I like to do. I like to challenge these assumptions, these perspectives, because then people start to think, and they think, this is really weird that we think about that, about age. This is what I hope. And this is the wonderful thing about the Wize Move Society, that this is what you're trying to do. You could say you're trying to create disruption, and we need disruption. Because if there's one thing that we need, is people with a lot of experience. We need that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if the introduction was a bit long, but okay. I wanted to share for now with you.
Well, it's always good, to learn what kind of a person we have here as a guest. And I know who you are, obviously, we know each other from way back, but also I've been working together and we challenge each other, and that is always very good. So I love that in you, that it's always coming from a different perspective than what others are doing. And that is exactly what we need right now. And I totally agree with you that, what is age? It is not about, how old you are. It is about your experience and also how you're using it. And I do believe that right now there's also a lot of people who are not using their experience. No. So that is also why we really need to challenge them as well. Yeah. So going back to that lifeline, that timeline, in where are you and where are you not? So do you know that doesn't really matter? We become older. The longevity, that is very important. And so this whole growing group of more experienced people is huge and can be a burden on society. It can change, the way you look at the economy and society will change a lot. But really, if you look at the whole timeline, it is that multi-stage life, that it already starts right now with the younger generations, and you work a lot also with the younger generations. They are looking at a lifeline that's, that's they can probably become older than we are, so into their 100s. So they have a longer life. And so they have to figure out what to do with it. And that is already starts pretty young. But then you have all these moments in your life, all these stages in your life that, you are preparing yourself for the next step. And of course, you're also living in now. I always believe that is important. But you are preparing yourself to the next step. Linda Gretton has really defined that great in her book, the 100-year life. And I think so it happens to all of us. But then there's this moment that especially the age group now, who's in their 50s and older, they haven't gotten that message when they were 18. They had no idea. When they started their career, it was like, okay, I'm just going to work until 65, then it's over, then I can retire and that's it. But we have this extra time. And that extra time needs to be spent differently. And that is something that I believe not a lot of people of our generation are thinking about. So I'd love to hear your perspective.
Well, I think when it comes to this, it also has to do on our perspective on work, let's be honest. So not only is our journey in life defined in terms of years and time that passes, but also in relation of how productive we are in the labor force. And somehow also someone has decided that your contribution to the labor force is a certain time period, and that it kind of declines also as you in the course of time, and that the degree to which you are productive decreases. This is why at a certain moment you have to leave. This is really weird. This is really weird, because as I say, you could say that with the growing of, or with the passing of time and your life journey, I would say you become more productive, because you have much more life experiences, much more bigger networks, you have studied things, I don't know, you have gained life lessons, gained insights. So it's weird that we approach it that way. That's one. So our perspective on work is very determinant also in this reframing and framing also people in terms of age. Another one is also that I think that this, you could say that people themselves and also this generation somehow have adapted to this idea. Okay, at a certain moment, I'm not productive, and then I'm going to do what I like to do. This is really strange. If we view work differently and view work as something that you do and that you are passionate about, then age is totally meaningless. My grandfather, as an example, my grandfather was, and he really loved that. He owned a bookstore. This was his passion. He did that till he was, I think, 87. He never spoke about the fact that, oh, I have to, well, it didn't even come up in his mind that he would have to retire. This was his passion. Mm. So he stopped doing it when he felt, okay, now I just can't physically anymore. That's because I cannot keep up in this case with all the new books coming. And then, so I think we really also have to reframe our own way of approaching work and challenging that. Mm-hmm. We have to challenge it, because on the other, we also do it towards youth, I think. How often do we not say to youth, oh, but you cannot have a responsible job because you don't have experience? This is weird. So the experience is used against the older age. Oh no, you are in the decline phase because you are too old. Mm-hmm. And to the young people, we say, no, you cannot have a responsible job because you are too young. You don't have enough experience. This is really weird. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a contradiction. It's a contradiction. So by reframing also this, what work is in our lives and what our contribution is in terms of work. If we are passionate about what we do, it's meaningless, these numbers. It's completely meaningless. It's, if we love what we do, you can be 100 doing what you love to do. Mm-hmm. And then we also do not only relate or not only define our contribution, because we want to contribute somehow to society and to work, in the extent to which we are productive, which is really a very strange indicator to use, because this is related to, oh, when you're old, you're less productive, but to the extent to which we create value. Well, I would say then the old age has a lot of value to create as the young. It doesn't matter. It's the value that you're creating. It's the value that you're giving back to society. And age becomes meaningless in that sense. This is my...
Yeah, I'm going to add one dimension to it. And then I'm giving the floor to Tatiana, because she's probably already thinking about what is happening there. There is this thing about productivity and your passion and things like that, and having your income streams.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So what's your question?
Well, that is... for many people, of course, is that related to work, to a job, and I think more so in this 50+ generation, that they're still, they were raised in a time that they were being told, okay, you just go, you do your education, you find a job, and you will do that until you're 65 and retire. So there's this confusion somewhere on the road. So there needs to be this part of, okay, so where is that earning money? Because that is important also for those who are already retired, because most of them have not built enough income.
Yeah. Of course, that's absolutely true. But this, I think, and I'm not an expert in this field, this has to do also with our whole system around work, that you could say how everything is financed, that we build up kind of our pensions so that when we stop working, so that we can still, we can have that income so we can do things. But in a sense, I think, as I say, I'm not an expert in this field. It's questionable whether this is a sustainable model, because as you correctly mentioned, if you look at the demographics, this group of older people is growing, and then you get in trouble because then you don't have enough money for this generation, not only because of the pensions that are not sufficient, but also you need a kind of also more to another type of a society, let's say a lot of more healthcare and a lot of other things for this group. So I think this is not a sustainable model. And that we have to think about, how can we create a model which is less in a kind of fragile also, because it's a fragile model. And it is. And I think that's one of the problems also. So if we feel somehow responsible that we want to create value on this life journey, doing what we are passionate about, then, and if you continue just working in doing what you love, then you don't need a pension. Mm-hmm. You just continue working.
You can continue working. Yes.
And of course you will, at a certain moment, you might need it, but then it's for another reason, not because someone has decided that you're not productive anymore and that you have to be replaced by a new generation, but because somehow you feel, okay, I have given everything I have created the value in this society and in my lifetime that I am able to offer, and now I have to give the torch to someone else. Mm-hmm. It's again a different approach. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have to rethink also the way that we organize this.
Absolutely. We not only have to reinvent ourselves, but also society. So it's
systemic,
absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
You have to reinvent also at systemic level. That's inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so Tatiana.
Yes, I really like the start of this conversation by challenging those labels and those paradigms we live, because I think that is the starting point of a productive conversation. Those labels are limiting, and we are bound to behave in a particular way if we are abiding by them. So this is time for us to start calling out for those labels and how inappropriate they are to think society today. It's interesting, Saskia, as you're speaking, I was thinking about all these theories from psychology that talk about the different stages of development, and by age such and such you should be achieving this, by age etc. you should be achieving that. And one of the things quite early on in my practice as a psychologist that I faced is someone that asked me, what if I get to this stage in life and I haven't developed any of that?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the reality is, well, a lot of people don't, and a lot of people do much earlier. It's not those guidelines, they are constructions, they're ideas, they're theories that are being put together. They're not necessarily the truth. They just try to explain what's out there. And I think that's the same with the labels, expectations around age. So I really like that being brought the conversation by Saskia, bringing that as her academic hat on, challenging that beginning of the conversation. The other thing that I think is interesting, and I'll pass that back to Saskia once I introduce the idea, is this idea that working life is being modeled around this ideal worker. Is this ideal worker that got no age, no body, no family, no needs, nothing, is like a robot. The ideal worker goes to work long hours, come back home and don't complain, don't say a word. And that's unrealistic, but that's how workforce is structured. So we don't have variations. We can't have someone that has family responsibilities that wants to work a bit of the time, not all the time. Someone that got a different stage of career that don't want to do that job in that full-time mode, but would like to participate in an alternative way. Because all these different ways of thinking go against the status quo, which is that ideal worker scenario. But aging is starting to challenge that, because it's a smack on the face of the ideal worker that we age and we do have family commitments, and sometimes we need to look after our health to be able to carry on, and that requires some time off, some adjustments and so on. But we're not less valuable. Again, another nice concept, Saskia, you brought to society, just because we're no longer that ideal worker that we fantasize about. So I'll pass on to you, Saskia.
Yeah, well, in a sense, this ideal worker, I would call it an archetype. It's a construct, as you correctly point out, Tatiana. It's something that we constructed. And I had to think immediately about the epic film of Charlie Chaplin, Modern Times, And you must have seen it. And can you imagine at that time that he was already mocking, not only challenging, but mocking the way that work was approached, and also mocking this ideal worker that had to behave like a robot. And you could say that we are still living under the shadows, because it was, of course, had to do with this scientific approach to work based on Taylorism, that it was all about efficiency, about productivity, and about speed to market. And we were just, I would call, the nuts and bolts that had to make it happen. And it's interesting to see that till this time, this is how we approach human resources. Human resources have to behave like nuts and bolts in this big machine, which can be an organization or an economy. And you somehow have to contribute to what this machine has to create in terms of output. And if the bolt is not working, let's say someone who is older, we just replace the bolt. But we are not a bolt, and this is not a machine. An economy is about, it's a living thing. It's about us people, it's about societies, wanting to create things, wanting to live with our families happily in a healthy environment, thinking about future generations. So I would also say that next to this ideal worker archetype, you have very much this machine also metaphor, which is so dominant still. So organizations behave like machines, and even you could say also things like education or healthcare. It's this machine metaphor which is somehow framing the way we approach this. And yeah, I think this is very problematic and not sustainable anymore, because we see that in a sense, if you look at where we are at now at the moment, we are facing very big challenges and crises also. And the only way to solve that, I would say, is really to do it differently. We have the academic knowledge, we have gathered a lot of research on how we have done it till now, how we have defined progress, how we have defined development. Well, and we should learn from that and say, okay, we have done a lot of things are questionable. And especially when it comes to how we approach age and also how we approach human resources in organizations, whether it be public or private, and even in society. For me, and I don't want to start about the COVID pandemic, but I want to mention that a little bit, because for me that you could say it was magnified, this approach that, okay, we have to behave like robots, as you called it, maybe a bit better, black and white. This is how this pandemic was approached. We have to behave like robots. We have to just follow orders, just do it, and then everything will be solved. And now we're finding out we are not solving it because it doesn't work. Also, in this case, the machine metaphor doesn't work. We stand in line, all very obediently doing what they're telling us, but nature behaves differently. This virus behaves differently. Exactly why? Because it's a living thing. We are human beings. We are not robots. We are not machines. So that's why, yeah, I know that I'm disrupting a lot, but I'm doing that on purpose because it's really necessary. This knowledge, this wisdom, because we often say, oh, older people are wise, but this is not just a word. It's not just a phrase. This is something so fundamental. And this is something so important because we have the wisdom of being able to look over a long period of time. And this gives us an insight and a knowledge which we so need to see, okay, what can we take with us into the future, which somehow helped us to reach this point, but what is really obsolete and not necessary anymore? This is our contribution. Invaluable.
Tatiana, do you want to respond on this?
I really like the idea of obsolete. It's quite a strong word to show us how certain things no longer serves any purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just making the whole circle and come back to us as individuals that should do whatever we feel it's right for us. And if we desire to work, we should pursue it. If we desire to do other things, we should pursue it. Is this idea that if we break away that paradigm of machines and we go back to dealing with ourselves as living organisms, then there's more room for these ups and downs, ebbs and flows. That is normal life. That is the way we, our own biorhythm.
Mm-hmm. That's life.
That's life.
Life is life. Yeah, that is. Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Saskia. One of the things that intrigues me is that at a sort of not a conceptual level, but at an academic level, as a thinker, I really relate with these ideas and I really understand. But how is it like to bring these ideas to an audience that maybe never thought about it, that maybe they're still trapped in the machine of...
Yeah. Well, to be honest, because I teach about, for instance, this Taylorism, which I just mentioned. But what I do, if I show the film Modern Times to my students, they immediately know what I mean. So I would say we have to revisit that again and watch those films, because they hold these messages. We think always that knowledge comes from books. That's not true. Watching films, sharing stories, also sharing our stories, this is where the wisdom lies. And also music. So it's not only in the books, because books is a lot of theory, but theory is not reality. Theory helps us kind of to get a grasp on reality. But I think also the way we approach theories is like, okay, this is a theory, so this is the truth. This is not the truth, it's a theory. Mm-hmm. Well, let's not go into, this has to do, of course, with how academics work. But so I would say, watch Modern Times and you will understand immediately. And yeah, if we watch it all and everyone, young people, they will say, oh, wait a minute. So this is what they expect from us in the labor force. I think many people will say, I don't want that. Because it's, in a sense, it dehumanizes. This is what I found so, and this is also what young people told me, it dehumanizes. You are not seen as this human being, whether it's Deborah or it's Mary or it's Tatiana, that has something to bring. You are this marketing manager or this sales manager or this logistics. No, this is a function you have, maybe a role you have. This is not you. Mm-hmm. And if, let's say, you enjoy doing logistics, it shouldn't be, because this is how also, when you are, for instance, having appraisal systems, you have to fit again in a box. They have a checklist. Okay, these are all the things you have to do. And then if you say, but listen, I also enjoy doing this. No, sorry. So you can't do that. It's outside the box. So I think that, of course, how do you want to have people start thinking about those things? For me, stories, films, I love, for instance, also watching The Hero's Journey, not because of all the messages, but it's just to think about our life as a journey where you have dragons to slay and calls to adventure. And then it's all, it becomes more clear. Mm-hmm. It's not us trying to fit into the boxes that society is trying to impose on us, but it's trying to navigate that and still remain true to ourselves. This is what it is about. And I'm sure that I would ask you also in the audience or anyone listening, what do you feel about what you have to offer? That people will come up with a lot of things, but we allow ourselves to be defined about what others think of us, what others expect of us, what society imposes on us. This is ridiculous. This is really ridiculous. We are allowing ourselves to be boxed in. This is what we should not do. So if you want to become, let's say, you're 70, it was always my dream to start a camping in Nepal or something like that. I would say, just go for it.
Yes.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
what kind of limitation is there to do that, except society saying, oh, are you going to do that at 70? Shouldn't you start thinking about what? Ending your life sitting on a chair reading books or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, we have to challenge, ourselves, I think, in this respect. So I would say to this 70-year-old, go for it.
Well, that was actually, 2 years ago, and you were there when I was thinking about moving to the future. And, I told the first time I was thinking about, I really need to work with this generation was actually, I think it was 12 years ago that those bank fell, Lehman Brothers, that is where it started. Yeah. And that's, I was 49, 50, and I saw that a lot of people, my generation, that they lost a job or they lost a business and they got completely stuck.
Yeah.
They were confused. There was this thing that, well, actually they were looking for the job they had just lost in a similar company, in a similar environment. They just were looking for the same. So I like that robot idea because that is actually what I saw. They were completely confused about, okay, so what do I do now? And not being creative in finding the solution, but waiting for someone else to figure it out for them, because that is how they were trained. That is how they had lived their life for up to that moment. So there was this thing that already then I felt like, okay, we really need to work with that. That if I moving to that moment that we said, okay, there is this time, and that is making people think. Time to reinvent yourself, because that is also the training that you're doing on the Wize Move Society is about. So how can you think about the whole situation, learn from different perspectives, look at it from different perspectives, look at who you are, what your passion is, and things like that. Can you share a little bit more about that? And then I also would like Deborah and Mary Jane to jump in and learn a little bit about what you're thinking of what's everything that is being said. But can you share a little bit about because that is a process. I think it's in 8 different sessions. It's over a number of weeks, months, that you start working on their mindset and creating that, going from being that robot, being that machine into, okay, so, and who am I and what do I want?
Yeah, but before doing that, because I do want to acknowledge, of course, that, you referred to the crash in 2008, which caused a lot of people to lose their jobs, and the fear that also induced in them. And also now I know many people that have to also live from their pensions. So they're kind of eating up their pensions because they don't have sufficient means. So this is happening. We have to acknowledge that. And I think and I'm not a psychologist, but we also have to understand that if you have been hearing this narrative about yourself and about, what stage you are now in at this age, you start to believe in it yourself. Mm-hmm. So this is what induces fear. You think, oh my God, now I'm at the end of my active working life. And now this happened. So you kind of get in a panic. Yeah. So to take you to, let's say, the training, I think we have to be aware of these things of ourselves. And how can we get out of these patterns? Because it's patterns that we develop in our way of working and our way of doing things that bring us to a point, and this is, of course, also, you could say the labels and the frames and the way we are framed that contribute to this, that we reach a point, okay, what should we do? And this, you can freeze and say, oh my God, or you can say, oh, wait a minute, this is a moment of opportunities. Mm-hmm. But in order to see the opportunity, you first have to become aware of, how is it possible that I reach this point that I feel that I'm completely powerless at such a crisis? Well, I would say at such a crisis, this is where you can tap into your wisdom and say, oh, but I have so much wisdom. I can face this and I can use maybe things that I never tapped into to get out of this one. And that's why I think that this is the importance of dreams for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we often say, yeah, dream sounds nice, you know, but it's a dream and dream is not reality. Yeah, no, it's not true. A dream, what the importance is of a dream is that it brings you into the realm of possibilities. You don't have to act yet. So you don't have to take a decision about, oh, am I going to actually do this? So you just have to dream. And the fact that you allow yourself to dream, you will experience, because this is what we notice, that, oh, wait a minute, this gives energy. Mm-hmm. So it pulls you slowly away from this situation and this status where you are only in fear, grasping and groping to regain what you felt you have lost. Mm-hmm. You have maybe lost something, but there's always this window and this door to something new. This is how it works. Mm-hmm. And so the dreaming is important. Once you start dreaming again, you start to think in terms of possibilities. And the next step is that you start really thinking, okay, but if I can have all these dreams about what I could do, then let's see whether I can have some ideas on how I could make this dream happen. And this is about movement. Mm-hmm. What you don't want is to freeze, because when you freeze, nothing happens. Mm-hmm. And when you want to kind of, as I say, recapture what you felt you've lost, you cannot go back in time. This is really academic irreversibility of time concept. You mm-hmm. cannot go back in time. You can only go forward. So you have two choices. You can go forward, mourning and moaning and saying, oh, look what I've lost. But you can also say, wait a minute, I have this open field, all these roads. Which road shall I choose?
Yeah.
And you can start doing things. And wonderful things happen.
Yeah.
You are doing this. This is what you're showing, that wonderful things happen.
Frances in the chat on Facebook, because there's also a lot happening. Yeah. She mentions the word confidence. You know, you lose your confidence.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you lose your confidence. Yes, of course, because in a sense, you've built your life. And this is how we approach life up to a certain point. We see life as we have to climb a mountain. Again, it's metaphors. Who says mm-hmm. we have to climb a mountain? You can also walk. And even if you climb a mountain, it's as if the goal is to reach the top. But beyond that top, there are more mountains. So mm-hmm. why would you think that your life is about reaching a top and then you know, kind of, this is the end? Mm-hmm. You can also say, okay, there are mountains, but there's then again a valley, and then there's another mountain. It's, you know, a landscape. And then also, I think you approach that differently. And this is how you could also build confidence. Mm-hmm. That knowing, okay, you know, I was at the top and now somehow I'm, you know, kind of going down instead of up. But if you view your life as a journey in a landscape, you know, there will be another mountain. Mm-hmm. So there will be another peak which you can somehow achieve. Mm-hmm. And since you have already you could say the experience, and you have the knowledge that, oh, but I already, you know, I already did that one mountain. I achieved that. This is what should give you confidence. So not the fact that you are now in a crisis should define you, but the knowledge that to reach that crisis, you had to reach the top also. Otherwise, you could not get into that crisis. And this has to give you confidence. And also the trust and you could say the hope. Oh, but there will be other barriers and obstacles that I will face, and I will be able to cross them.
Yeah. Yeah, and the words we use here a lot is curiosity, exploration, you know, really, that is so much fun. And people need to have that feeling back again, that it can be fun to go on that new journey. Deborah, I want to ask you, because I know you always have to leave a little bit earlier, anything that you would like to add or comment or question?
Yeah, this has been very... I mean, every time you say something, I go, oh, I've got something to say. We've come, our age group, I'm in that age group, have come through this life with opportunities for developing so many talents that we use at certain times. So we've got this storehouse of all these gifts and talents that are used here and there and here and there. Now we've come to this place where, oh my goodness, there's this whole world that's now opening up to us. And it's, how do we get that out of the closet? Mm-hmm. How do we bring it up? And what I'm kind of loving about what's happening in the world right now is because there's so much out there. It's almost like chaos. There's too much out there. But chaos is always a way, is the way I look at it, is that it's getting rid of what's extra that comes back to who we are, so that it's not really a challenge to pick. It's like, it doesn't feel good to do that anymore, but it feels so good to do this. And that part of me can support it, rather than me being a marketing manager or something. But there's something in the marketing manager that I learned. It's probably communication. So there's all these little gifts that we can recreate, reinvent ourselves with, and go out into the world and spend the rest of our life. Because I love what you were saying before about now the younger people, they've got an expansive view of their life, and it's like it's forever. And we've got, it seems like, at least for me, it's like, I've maybe got 20, 30 more years left. And it's like, oh, what am I going to do to fill those years? I've got so much left. And so there's so much to give. And it's like a never ending pot of what we all have to give in different phases and different gifts.
Yeah.
Being flexible.
Mm-hmm.
It's being flexible. And having that community. Ingun, this whole thing of having a community that's going to take us together down this mm-hmm. road. So we're not really alone, and we can ask somebody, we can support each other, is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's a play field out there. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
One big play garden, however you call it. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah, for sharing that. Mary Jane.
Yeah, beautifully said, Deborah, really. And also Saskia, I've also been hanging on to your lips. Just I want to come back to Francis's comment, about that loss of confidence. and I know we have so much that we can tap into resources to build that confidence. But when your environment around you is and you mentioned it too, Saskia, that we allow people to dictate to us how we should behave instead of pulling in from our own resources. But when you continually hear from your environment that, hey, you're too old, or you're too slow, or you're too this or too that, you do start to buy into it, and your level of confidence is going to can suffer if you allow yourself to buy into it. So again, I think the word that I hung on to next to obsolete, because I think it's a word that we can use in terms of reframing what needs to happen, what is obsolete and has to go. But also you use the word disruptive. You talked about yourself being disruptive, Saskia. And that for me is something that I think we need to speak up. We need to be, this is where the action comes in, and we need to be disruptive when we're talking about the stereotyping of aging, and how do we reframe it so that people understand. And I think somebody who's doing a great job at this right now is Aviva Wittenberg-Cox, with the work that she's doing, going back into Harvard, this whole concept of the next phase of your life. And this is not the last phase of our lives. This is just one phase in our lives. And getting more and more people to understand this. So, but everything you've said, and also Tatiana, really You've hit the nail on the head of where the problems are, the challenges are, but also how we can change the status quo as it is now.
And I think what I didn't mention it yet, but I think what also is really not helpful in this respect is, because I mentioned the labels and the framing, but it also has to do with the way we look. If there's one thing that I really detest, is that how we are framing what beauty is. Because also this is completely based on stereotypes and prejudices. So that when you're growing older, somehow you're losing your beauty. Who says that? I mean, what is beauty? How do you define that? Because this allows also to use these labels. And I'm very much in favor and seeing that, but I think it still gets too much attention. You know, you nowadays sometimes have these models of 82 or so. Oh, look, we have this. I think this is ridiculous. I mean, why should this also be defined in terms of age? It doesn't make sense to me. So I think we also have to reframe, you could say, everything that somehow boxes us into some category based on labels that have been invented, keep us away from the essence of what this is about. We are human beings. Full stop.
Yes, great. Thank you. Yeah. There's a lot in there. So yes, Deborah, you have to go work on your group with healthy aging. Tatiana, anything from you? We're just entered the last 9 minutes.
I think
flying.
Time flies. I think there's a lot of food for thought here, and a very important wrapping up of conversations we've been having in different weeks, and the importance of disrupting and the importance of letting go of these chronological age as a marker of whatever competence, value, whatever we want to attach to it, whether you're young or older. Because I agree when Saskia observed, if I'm too young to ... you know, we should wonder if that's just a stereotype that we just attaching to people on the grounds of age. So I think that this is, again, an important conversation. Thank you, Saskia, because you put things in a very compelling, very, very passionate way. And I think that it is important to communicate that passion so the message lands with people that probably haven't listened to the message yet, or just now starting to realize that actually there's something else there they might not have thought it was before. So thank you. These are my final words. Thank you, Ingun.
Thank you, Tatiana. Saskia, anything else that you feel like, okay, I haven't mentioned that and really needs to go out there into the world?
No, I think I've mentioned most of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I really think that we have to be more bold and daring, and just not be so afraid of take steps and just follow our passion and reach for the sky. Why should that be limited to age? I remember my grandfather, he challenged any stereotype or prejudice. He was playing badminton at 91. You know, this is, and I will share a short story of how he died. And because he was very ill, he was 93 and he was in the hospital. And the nurse said, oh no, it was New Year's Day, Eve. And the nurse said, no, you have to stay in your bed. Oh no, because I love fireworks. I want to see the fireworks. And so they were saying that he should, because he was in tubes and everything. And he said, no way, I love fireworks. He was like a child always. And he stood up, and while he was watching the fireworks, he died. This is a real story. He just collapsed and died. And this is my grandfather. he was the day after, he was always collecting till he was 93, collecting, you know, because sometimes fireworks don't explode. He was collecting them, and like a child, he was firing them off. This is how we should be, like children. It's there. The child is in us. Yeah. This is just the outside part.
Yeah. You know, somewhere on the way, we are taught that we cannot do that anymore. So it's that is really crazy. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, but yeah, that's fantastic. And you know, the fun thing is, and I see that Bogusha, we cannot see her, but I was talking to there she is. I was talking to her yesterday. She is from the Institute of Silver Economy in Poland. So good you join us. It is the last minutes, but it's good that you have seen what is going on, and love to have you here more often, or even as a guest. But it is, you know, there are concepts here that, of course, we talk about a lot. You know, what is age? You know, why are we talking about age? It is about who you are as a person and what you can contribute and what you want to bring into life. And don't wait for things to happen, you know, make them happen. It's create a future that is, there is still so much for us to do. And when I hear someone of 57, and I talked to someone this week, 57, who felt, who's waiting for me? And I thought, who's waiting for you? You know, you have another maybe 40 years to go. Let's do this.
Don't worry.
And create it. And don't fall in the trap again that you're going to do something that someone else has created for you because they think that this is what you can do. We've done that long enough. So let's start creating. And that is absolutely also something that we are doing at the Wize Move Society. You know, we think with you know, if you are in that stage and you do feel stuck and you do feel, so how am I going to move forward? Then, you know, there is this moment that you feel like, okay, let's take that time to reinvent myself. And you know, Saskia is one of the teachers in the program, so it's really fantastic to go through that process, and we have seen amazing things happen. So that is really fantastic. But you know, also on other things, like, you know, what we say, what other people think, you know, forget about what other people think, and also your network that you've been building over the last 30 years can be worthless if you really are disruptive. You know, they will do the things that they have been doing for the last so many years. But if you want to change, then you might need another network. So you need new friends and things like that. And that is okay. And that is what Deborah also mentioned. You know, you need that community. You need that group of people that you feel comfortable. Okay, I'm not the only crazy one. You know, let's all be crazy ones. Let's all be rebels. Let's all be the ones who are going to create the future instead of waiting for things to happen. So thank you very much, Saskia, for your contribution. It was really nice. And I love, and I know Tatiana also loves that academic perspective and all these explanations of how it's working in our behavior and in our minds. That's really fantastic. Thank you, Tatiana. Of course, again, thank you, Mary Jane, for your contribution. And Bogusha, next time you just jump on earlier and share your wisdom as well. Really been great. Thank you all for joining us on Facebook, and see you next week when Vince from the UK is joining us as a guest. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
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 Thank you.